Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name's Alex Winter, and today we are talking about if you are losing your sales calls within the first few minutes. And we have two really wonderful people on the show today, Marcus Sheridan, who's a keynote speaker, author of They Ask You Answer, and a partner here at Impact, as well as Allison Riggs, head coach, trainer, and all-around marketing and sales guru. All right, Marcus, Allison, thank you so much for joining the show today. I really appreciate your time. And I'm also really excited to dive into what we're going to be talking about today, which is sales and things that salespeople can do to really improve their calls, improve their conversion rates, and improve, the bottom line for their company. And Marcus, I think I want to go to you first. And I just want to ask you and start off with, what are salespeople doing wrong? I hear a lot of salespeople doing most of the talking, and the customers just basically sit there and kind of do the bobblehead. What do you think about that, and how or what can sales professionals do to shift the conversation to put the ball in the customer's court?
Yeah, I mean, like, where do we even start, right, with this question? But yeah, I think it was Gong that did the study that says, with each speaker switch that you have in a sales call, the closing rates go up, right? So a speaker switch is, of course, when, let's say, the salesperson speaking, and then when the prospect is speaking, and if you can manage to have somehow some type of ping pong match, then the closing rates just go way up. The problem, of course, is most salespeople, especially, let's say, in the world of SaaS, which is just a disaster. Like, that whole industry is a disaster when it comes to selling. I just got to say how it works in SaaS right now, Alex. Right, how it
Okay.
works in SaaS, and this is like for most companies, not every single one, but you'll have this opening, and it basically says, hey, we're going to show you the product today. If you stop us, make sure, if you have any questions, make sure you stop us, etc. Right, and then suddenly, boom, 15 minutes of one person speaking, and the whole time they're saying things like, does that make sense? Sound good to you? Any questions about that? And there's literally no engagement. And if you can give a sales presentation in your sleep, you haven't done a good job. And that's what you see in the SaaS space. And I know this isn't a conversation about SaaS, but what you see is this person that gives the same demo or the same pitch every single time. It could literally be recorded, which means it's terrible at that point. Whereas if you customize that presentation, that pitch, and it's question based, like we say at Impact, question first approach. Now all of a sudden you can increase engagement, and it's a game changer. The questions should start from the very beginning of the sales conversation, and they shouldn't stop. It should just continue to go and go and go. And one other thing I'll say about this, Alex, now is I think one of the great mistakes that salespeople make is they don't come out the gate and they don't set the tone for questions with the prospect, and they don't get that initial agreement with the prospect, that verbal agreement that is so fundamental to any great sales conversation. And so that verbal agreement, or that initial contract, there's different names for it. Essentially, it might sound something like this. Now, Alex, as we go through this conversation today, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. And it's critical that you're very honest with me. And I'm going to be very honest with you. And at any point, if you feel like we're not going to be a good fit for you, my ask is that you'll let me know. At the same time, if I feel like we can't serve you the best, I'm going to let you know. So, can you commit to being very honest? And at any point, if you feel like there's a fit, to letting us know. Can you do that for us, Alex? And Alex, you're going to say yes. And we're going to say we're going to abide by the same rules. And now all of a sudden, you've got this initial agreement, this initial contract. Most companies don't do that. Most salespeople don't do that. It's fundamental to get it out of the way that there might not be a fit here, and we've got to be honest with each other. And if you're not doing that within the first 5 minutes of your sales conversations, you're missing a major opportunity.
Wow, that's fascinating. So it's really approaching it with a brutal honesty and just addressing the elephant in the
Yeah.
room right up front. Is that?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because by having that candor up front,
Mhm.
and just by saying, look, we might not be a great fit for each other. We got to figure that out here today. But you have to be honest with me. I'm going to commit to being honest with you. Can you commit to doing that? By doing that, there you've addressed the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is fit. We might not be a good fit. And so this way, because you've come out and said already we might not be a fit, they're much more inclined to be honest with you. But if you don't come out and say that, well, then they're going to look to protect your feelings oftentimes. And that means they're going to be dishonest with you, the prospect is, and you're going to have a fake pipeline that isn't real of a bunch of folks that weren't honest with you because you didn't give them permission and you didn't make them feel safe enough to be real with you in those initial few minutes. And of course, that continues to happen, that feeling of safety and that feeling of I can be very, very honest as you continue the conversation, but it starts at the beginning.
Wow. So you're really building trust without forcing it. You're letting them have that safe space, and you're creating that safe space immediately, so that there isn't that pressure to fib or to quote unquote play the game and just kind of follow the sales pitch.
Oh, it's kind of like a lot of sales appointments, Alex. It's like being on a roller coaster, right? And if you think about the first hill to the roller coaster, what happens? You're going up the hill, it's real slow, and it's click, 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 click. It's what you hear the whole time. And everybody's just like waiting for you to crest the hill. Well, in a typical sales process, what happens is the whole sales call is like the click, 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 click. And what's happening? The person is just waiting for you to try to come with the close or whatever the thing is, right? It's like if you're doing a great job, that roller coaster doesn't have hills. It goes straight, it goes smooth, and everybody knows exactly what's coming.
Wow. Wow. I love that. I really love that. To me, it's the traditional side of it. The more you're talking about it, it's really getting my wheels spinning. Where like I'm thinking of like Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, where he made that one pager that he had all of his reps read to just basically like deceive and trick people into giving them their money. And this seems almost like the complete opposite.
Yeah, I think, we talk a lot at Impact about elevating our authority as coaches, but as sales professionals, as peers to those that we work with. And this isn't unrighteous authority. This is righteous authority. It's the authority that someone needs to have, that they need to believe in you. And your authority elevates when you're willing to say things that others aren't, when you're willing to be more candid with more caring at the same time than others are not. And you have to, there almost always has to be this sense of, you know what? Either one of us could walk away at any point in this conversation, and that's okay. That's okay. And by doing that, it's amazing how it makes everyone relax, but it makes you the definitive leader, the definitive guide. That's what it's all about.
Wow. Love it. Fascinating. So, Allison, I'd love to pull you into this conversation too. Where do you get to the point of like the pendulum going too far in the other direction? And Marcus, you can jump in here as well, but where do you find that balance of not talking too much and letting the customer talk, but also not letting them basically take the whole conversation and it goes off on a tangent and you don't really ultimately get them where you want them to go?
Well, your goal of your sales calls really should be to find the best solution for your potential clients. And that's where going in with curiosity and asking questions that allows them to talk and to give you all the information that you need is a key point, but also getting clarity in there as well. And to Marcus's point of having the authority to, in a long-winded moment, stop and ask a question so that that potential client on the other end is going deeper, that they're not just giving you surface level answers, they're helping to elaborate and give you clarity so that you can give them that that best solution. And I love it when sales people and sales team members really think about themselves as investigators and even as coaches, where if you're a coach and you're a good coach, not in the impact coach way, right? But in any type of great coach, you're going to find the root cause. You're going to find that root issue that's going to allow you to be the best coach and the best guide. So there needs to be this beautiful balance of asking questions that gets them to elaborate, but also not asking the surface level questions. And this is something amazing that Marcus taught me is when you're getting that agreement that he mentioned before, you also need to get the agreement to ask the type of questions that are going to go deeper, that are not just going to be level one that every other salesperson is going to ask them, but it's level two and level three that's going to help build that trust, that's going to allow you to show up as a true guide in the sales process.
Wow.
And level 3, Alex, to what she just said,
I was going to
here's
ask,
how you
yeah,
know
I was going to ask
you're
what that was.
achieving level 3.
Okay.
How often do you as a salesperson hear someone say to you, you know what, you're the first person that's ever asked me that? Or, none of the other companies I've talked to have I shared this with. So those or any like derivative of that, that's a clear signal that you are doing discovery at a deeper level that no one else is. And another one I like is, and this can happen in your personal life as well. When someone says, geez, I just met you and I'm sharing this with you. I can't believe I'm sharing this with you right now. It's another great verbal indicator that somehow you've won their trust, but also you're quickly going there. You're getting to, as Allison said, root cause, or what is the core need? What is the core problem? And they're sharing things with you that they're not sharing with others. I mean, they, it's like, we consistently hear things like people won't remember what you told them, they're going to remember how you made them feel, right? And that's very, very true when it comes to the sales process. And the way that you can really induce an emotional element to a sales call is by getting them to share things they don't normally share. That's how it happens. That's how you get that emotional connection. That's what makes them say afterwards, golly day, there's just something about Allison, right? I just feel like she got to know us at a level that no one else bothered to get to know us. Because let's be honest, most have this like conveyor belt set of questions that they know they're going to ask. They don't have the follow-up questions to ask because they haven't been trained at the level to go to level 2 and 3 like Allison was talking about. And then they've got the pitch. And that's standard works. Anybody can do that. The magic isn't what's in the script. See, that's the thing. The magic is what happens after the script, where we have to lean on our skills of really hearing what the person is saying and then truly diving deeper with those discovery questions.
Wow. I love
And
all of
Alex, I
that.
want to jump in here too,
Please. Yes, please.
along that line of what Marcus is saying is, even when a lot of salespeople, that first 10 minutes, they're like, let me get to know you. How are you? What's the weather like? Where are you located? Tell me more about yourself. That is a typical sales tactic that weak sales team members use in order to build that connection, versus strong salespeople will build that connection and build that trust with really great questions throughout that sales call. And so they don't need to be liked. They need to show up as a guide and be respected, because that's what they're going to remember of how they felt when someone gave them a true solution, even if it wasn't with that company that they were talking to. They're like, man, they understood me. They understood my problem. They got me. Not because they started off with the fluffy stuff, but because they got deeper and took the time to build that relationship throughout that sales call.
That's an excellent point. And I feel like I've even been guilty of that in the past, where I tried to do the fluffy, and you're trying to be nice, you're trying to build a relationship and build trust. So that's like the stereotypical, like, this is where we can start. Like, where are you from? How was your weekend? Blah, blah, blah. And you're right. It is a weak way, or a weak angle to take when you really become that expert and ask very pointed questions. It shifts the trust in a different way to like, oh, this person's really trying to deep dive with me and help my business, versus just, fluff.
Well, and to Alice's point, Alex, you can be the most direct and the most caring person in the room at any given time. And so sometimes people hear that, like what Allison just said, and they're saying, yeah, but that's not me. I'm friendly. No, no, you're misinterpreting what you just heard.
Okay.
You see, you can be the friendliest person in the world and warm, and also be very direct and efficient. Because if you think too on a lot of sales calls, if you have major leaders there, decision makers, their whole world is based on efficiencies and not wasting time. They will respect those persons that respect their time. They will respect someone that is a peer to them in terms of the way they approach communication. And so if I'm chatting with someone, if Allison's chatting with someone, they're going to quickly pick up on, oh, they're not here for the fluff. They're not going to waste my time. This is this my team is going to benefit from this type of conversation. But the moment you start to deviate from that, we have a problem. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention, just as in terms of, you know, having watched so many sales uh, recordings of sales teams literally around the world, Alex, one of the most obvious best practices that gets missed, especially at the beginning, is just setting the agenda. Setting the agenda is an utter disaster in the marketplace. And usually it's extremely vague if set at all. The way you know you've set a good agenda with someone is if once you're done setting it, could they tell someone else what the purpose of this call is, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and what right looks like? In other words, what's the goal of this call? And if it goes well, what's going to happen next? You see, this eliminates the click, click, click we talked about earlier, right? So if I say to you, as a pool guy, Alex, if I say to you, so the purpose of this conversation today is number one, we're going to choose the perfect swimming pool shape and size for your backyard. That's the first thing we're going to do.
Sure.
Now, after we're done doing that, Alex, we're going to look at options and accessories. We're going to choose the right options and accessories for your swimming pool. That's number two. So number one, we're going to choose the perfect swimming pool shape and size. Number two, we're going to choose the right options and accessories. And then number three, we're going to give you a quote, a price. At that point, if your budget aligns with the price that we give you, you can then give us a deposit. That's going to get you on the schedule and we can proceed forward with your site design. Does that plan sound good to you? Person says, yes, that sounds good to me. But in their head, they're thinking, okay, three things. I know the three things. I know what I gotta do. Number one, we're gonna pick a swimming pool shape size. Number two, we're gonna pick options. Number three, they're gonna give me a price. And assuming this goes well, I'm gonna put down a deposit and we're gonna proceed forward with the site design. You see, if you don't know where you're going in the sales call, there's a very solid chance you definitely won't get there because you don't know. You're walking aimlessly.
Absolutely.
And so great salespeople give clear vision of here's where we are headed. And this is what right looks like. This is how we know we've gotten there. Do we agree? We agree. Let's move. That's fun. That's fun.
It sounds so novel when you explain it that way, and it's such a great example because it seems so simple. But you're right, most salespeople don't do that. And I've been on calls where they just go right into the demo, and you sit there and you're just listening and watching, and there's no interaction, there's no pointed conversation or next steps that are clear that you can be bought into, and it goes back into like a bit of assignment selling piece too. So for sales reps, Marcus and Allison too, please jump in here. What would you recommend for sales reps to do to prep people for their calls? How do you set those conditions? How do you get people ready? Because I know there's different industries, but there should be some type of general rule of thumb here for everybody that they can start applying today.
Go ahead, Allison.
Marcus. Yeah. What works incredibly well is sending that at least quick agenda before the call. Typically, we tell sales teams you want to have a video. You want to send them a video because one, you want them to see you, hear you, and know you before you even show up to that very first sales call. And you need to set the expectations of, hey, Alex, really excited for our meeting on Thursday. Now, you're probably wondering, what are we going to talk about? Here are the three things that we're going to cover on this call. By the end of that call, we're going to know whether or not we should take next steps. And here are a couple of ways for you to best prepare for that call on Thursday. And that way, when they come into the call as well, If you're doing it right and you have a great CRM and you have a great video tool that gives you the analytics and the data, you can see whether or not they've watched or read those resources, and you know that they're educated and they're ready before they show up. And so if you know that they've watched it and done it, you can ask the right questions. You don't have to go into here's what to expect too much. You can just dive right into that agenda and get going. So really think through, how great salespeople do this. They want that person to show up excited, ready, and knowing what the purpose and the path of that call is for them.
Absolutely. Really great points.
I'll elaborate further on that.
Sure.
Allison mentioned giving them essentially the assignment, as we call it, right? That's why I call it assignment selling, is because what we've learned is the more content somebody consumes from you during the sales process, the more likely they are to buy from you. Pretty obvious, but yet oftentimes salespeople don't even know the content that's available to them to integrate into the sales process. Salespeople oftentimes are answering the exact same questions over and over again in sales calls, which is ridiculous, because if you keep getting the same sales calls and yet you keep answering them, it just means you really like to live Groundhog's Day. Why would you do that? If you can eliminate those redundant questions you're getting, how would that change your life? How would that change your sales conversations? Well, we can tell you because we live this every day with the teams that we train. Their closing rates go up, the time to sell goes down, and the general quality of conversation goes up. Now, here's the thing though. When you are giving someone, let's call it content, and saying, here's, you're asking them to view it or read it or whatever, consume it before your meeting. Let's put it like that. You want to be very specific about this. And the way that we teach teams to do this is there's got to be what the assignment is. It's got to be very, very clear. Why it matters to them. That's number 2. Why it matters to them. And when are they expected to have it done by? Okay. So what's the assignment? Why does it matter to them? And when is it expected to be done with a verbal agreement, right? So I'm not going to just say to you, Alex, now before we meet on Friday, it'd be great if you could give this video a look-see. And then you say, okay, that'd be nice, because you haven't committed to do anything. And furthermore, that was a terrible job of selling on my part. Whereas if I say to you, now, Alex, I know for our meeting this Friday, you probably have a series of questions, worries, fears like everyone else does. And we've actually produced a video that addresses the 7 major fears folks like you have when, let's call it, building a new website. In fact, we want to prevent you from making some of the most common mistakes folks make when building a new website. And so as you watch this video, we're going to address this question, we're going to address that question, we're going to address this question. And by the way, just pretend that these are really interesting questions that you might not even know the answer to, right? So we're going to address these 3 questions. Now, by watching this video, not only is it going to help eliminate mistakes on your part, Alex, and it's going to help optimize your dollar spent, but it's going to make our time together much more efficient when we meet together on Friday. So, Alex, we commit to viewing these things before our call on Friday. And now, of course, you're going to say, yes, I've gotten the commitment from you. That's called selling. But the key there was, as I said, what the assignment was very clearly. I said, why does it matter? Explained why it matters. And the third, we got the win with the commitment. That's what assignment selling should look like, using content intentionally in the sales process. Truth is, most salespeople, they say they do this. They don't do it well. It's more like, it would be great if you could give this a look. Here's an attachment. That is so lame. We have to do better than that. And unless you're training your team how to do this, they're probably falling dramatically short.
Amazing. Those are really great points, Marcus. Thank you for sharing those. I think that's a huge takeaway here that most salespeople definitely need to keep in mind on their next sales calls. Marcus, can you talk about how important the first 5 minutes of a sales call is, and what should happen in those first few minutes to really make sure the conversation goes in the right direction, and just really what that's all about? Because I think a lot of people overlook how important those first crucial minutes are.
I just think, like, The first 5 minutes of a speech, first 5 minutes of a date, the first 5 minutes of a dinner appointment with a group that you don't know. Like by the end of that five, you know if you want to stay, you know if you want to leave.
That's so
That's
true.
that's how it is.
So true.
And sales is no different. So what makes someone say, I want to stay? I want to stay. Well, what makes them want to stay is when you do things like what we've been discussing, you set a clear agenda that makes them say, this person knows where we're going. You have a verbal agreement at the beginning where if there's not a fit here, that we're going to be honest enough to let each other know. And they say, "Phew, no one's done that with me. I like this. This is great." You start to ask questions immediately that they can tell matter. They're not just fluffy questions. Like they're questions that haven't been asked of them, that they have a clear direction. You're like, okay, this person thinks differently. This company rolls differently. I can tell that they're getting to know us and they care about us at a deeper level than everyone else. So there's that, Alex. And then there's just the general energy. Energy is a funny thing. Energy is harder to teach. It's harder to teach people how to have the right energy. But I will tell you the key to energy is that you try to match your prospect and just be slightly above where they are, just slightly above where they are. Don't overwhelm them,
Okay.
right? And so if you have someone that is more of a thinker, allow them the time to think. Don't overwhelm them. If you allow someone that is that classic, Italian 3 feet from you and just wants to talk to you just like that, you got to with that person, you got to match their energy. Match the energy. See, this is a skill that you don't generally see taught, but once you learn to match your audience's energy, it's very, very powerful. Now, again, this doesn't mean you don't elevate their energy, but you quickly identify their energy and find, okay, how can I match this person, not overwhelm them too much. If you see me speaking on a keynote stage to 1,000 versus giving a workshop, um, it's to 30 people, it's going to be a different feel. It's going to be a different vibe. It's going to be a different energy. Right. And so match the energy of your audience and then elevate it.
Yeah, and you are certainly an expert with that. I've seen you give talks in front of 1,000, and the energy level's huge, and you get very rambunctious and excited, and you get people
Yeah.
interacting, and you're working the floor and the crowd. It's excellent to see. But then you're right, when you're in a room with 30 people, the energy's a little bit different, and you still need to be positive, and you're still that guy. But it's learning how to dial it in and read the room. Basically, is what it sounds like you're saying.
That's exactly right.
Before we wrap up, I have one last question for you. So this one's one that I hear a lot. People in the sales cycle or in the sales, they'll be on a sales call talking to prospects, and they tend to do the bobblehead where they like yes everything. It's like, yeah, we can do that. Sure, we can figure that out. Yes, 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 yes. Where do you draw the line on being a yes person, and how important is it to be direct and come at it in a way that's like you're not always saying yes because yes isn't always the right answer? Like where do you find that balance, and how do you train yourself to not basically be a yes person all the time?
Yeah, this manifests differently for each person. Once again, Gong is great with this. They've done some studies on this, and what they found is that there's a pattern of, let's say, responses that we give to questions we've asked once we've heard answers from the prospect. Oftentimes, it sounds something like, "Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's wonderful." Right? These are all the yes. These are all examples of this. Now, what they have found to be true, Alex, is the more you repeat the same response to a response, the more your closing rate goes down. Why?
Really?
Because what's happening is the prospect literally starts to notice the pattern that you're just saying the same thing each time. In other words, you're not actually hearing them. You're just responding in a way that's a bridge to your next question, but you're not sitting in the moment with them.
Right. It's almost like you're waiting for your turn to speak again, right? It's like you're not even really listening, or
That's right.
if it comes off that way anyways. Yeah. Wow.
That's right. This is why the power of the follow-up question is the most essential sales skill that is arguably the least taught in sales trainings today. Once you teach your team that, then you have those light bulb moments on the part of the prospect. Those, oh my goodness, I had no idea that was the case. But now having this conversation with you, Alex, like you've helped me realize here's what's really going on. I mean, just imagine hearing that as a salesperson. Just write the contract already. It's done. I mean, it is done. And this is the power that each one of us has. But just to reiterate, most salespeople, when you ask them, are you good with questions? Think they are. Most say yes. Now, there's a series of tests that we do with teams at Impact that help them really truly gauge their ability to ask questions.
Mhm.
And time again, what we hear is, I thought I was good. Oh my goodness, I have so much to improve. And that's the case. And it only comes by being incredibly present with that person, genuinely curious as to what they're saying and as to how to really find out what's going on, getting to the core of the issue, the need, the problem, etc. But you do that, the person feels it, everybody wins, trust elevates, and your closing rates are clearly going to benefit.
I love it. I love everything I'm hearing. Marcus, thank you so much for your time and for all these insights. I feel like I have a lot to digest. You already have given me some tips and tricks that I thought I knew, because I've done some selling in the past too, and I feel like I learned a lot about myself on this call. That's like I'm looking at the mirror going like, man, I need to reassess how I approach some of these conversations just based off of what you've said today. So thank you so much for your time and for being on the show. Allison, thank you so much for joining the show and for spreading some really incredible knowledge from your experiences. We just really love having you on, and wish you all the best. You want to just quickly tell everybody where they can find you and where they can reach you in case they have any follow-ups or questions.
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Allison Riggs at Impact. My email address is on there as well. And you can always come to the Impact website. I got my bio video on there. It's got a way to contact me. And I look forward to having more of these conversations with you, Alex.
Me too. Thank you so much, Allison.
You can hit me on LinkedIn, and you can find me, Marcus M. Sheridan at impactplus.com is my email. Obviously, these are things that we teach. I speak about this all over the world, do trainings about this all over the world. And so reach out to us if you're interested in this. But, if I can close with this, Alex,
Sure.
selling and communication in general truly is like that pencil we used to use in grade school. It constantly gets dull and it constantly breaks, and we constantly have to resharpen it. That's reality. And so that's why I enjoy talking about this, because even as you, Alex, say, man, there's things I realize I could be doing. By me talking about this, it will help me to be better today in the way I'm communicating with those around me.
Absolutely. Incredibly well said. I like life is about learning, and being a professional is about learning and continuing to grow. And you may think you know everything, and you don't always know everything. And I think you do a great job of bridging that gap and getting people to see things clearly. At least for me, I'll speak for myself. You do a great job of making me see things in a different perspective that is so simplified, and it makes so much sense. And I think we get caught up in the communication side and the professional piece where like there's too many things going on, and we're overthinking it and we're overanalyzing it and we're doing too much, when really we just need to be focused on emotionally connecting with people and being real with people and being
That's
genuine
right.
and being honest. And I love that that's what you're all about. Major respect. Major. Yeah.
100%. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. All right. I can't wait to have you on the show again, and we'll definitely be talking soon.